If you're not watching us live on YouTube, you're missing a lot. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel and become a Night Dreamer. Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the Strange News. The Pentagon's new UFO website lets you explore declassified sightings info. Eventually, people will be able to submit their own reports of, quote, unidentified anomalous phenomena, close quote. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com. Deep in the Amazon jungle, one man.
Hi, I'm Stan Gordon. Check out the Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Guy.
Yeah, let me finish. One man.
Hi, I'm Mark Muncy. Check out Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary the Big Guy.
Yeah, do you mind? One man, naked and afraid.
I'm losing my mind.
You and me both, sister. One man, Gary the Big Guy. No boats, no lights, no motor cars, not a single luxury.
Hey, any more and you'll have to pay a royalty.
Okay, that's it.
Hit it.
From the summer vacation studios deep in the Amazon jungle, from that tree right there. See at the top, he's swinging.
I'm losing my mind.
Twice?
All right. Coming to you live, for now, on Night Dreams Talk Radio, naked and afraid, Gary the Big Guy Anderson.
Well, it's the 18th of September, and boy, did it go fast. It's crazy how fast the time is going. Well, you know, our president today, JC, said that we're about ready for an economic crash. I wonder why.
Yeah, with everything that's going on. Remember, we talked about that before. There may not even be anything, but they're putting the brains of everybody's head, so it makes them react.
I know, it's scary. Well, in the news today, you know, a lot of people, hopefully you saw the E.T. Pictures, the corpse, the whatever. It's out of Mexico, and they're claiming that is an actual E.T. body. And that is really, if that is true, there is our flaming gun right there to prove that this thing is real. ETs could be real. And also another later today, a news article said that they found chips underneath the skin of this body of this ET. I'm talking about chips, microchips.
Yeah, I seen that, the video of it. Actually, there was two of them, I believe, and it showed the bones and all. Now, again, was it real or was it something? Because, you know, there's been some fake ones, but more to come on that, I guess. We'll see.
I don't know. I just go by with the news. But, you know, it is really, really scary that, you know, this stuff keeps coming. Just like Congress. You know, I think what they should do is get a big circus tent. So when Congress talks about disclosure, what they need to do is do it in a circus tent and invite people to come. They could sell popcorn, hot dogs, and soda. Because I'll tell you what, when I was watching all this stuff with Congress, I had my feet propped up on my easy chair. I had popcorn and I had my soda. And I'll tell you, it was better than any comedy I've ever watched.
I won't mention who, but right in the mid center, there's somebody people know he's sitting there all crunched up the whole time. I was like, oh, you're right, it was comedy.
Well, you know, the whole point is they're not telling us the truth, and that's if they're going to have disclosure, we need the truth out. Okay, not the circus that the congressmen are putting on. I'm sorry. They don't want us to really know the truth. So you can get all the people with disclosure. You can get all the eyewitnesses. Okay. But you know what? It's still going to be whitewashed. Maybe it's going to take another country like Mexico or Ukraine, for example, or somebody, right, to come forward and say, okay, we got wreckage. We got proof. Now, we stop lying about stuff.
They call it disclosure, but right when it gets to the big big part, they always say, well, we'll have to talk about it in a skiff or a private area. You know, they dance around everything. You really don't learn nothing.
That's the whole point. You know, what really, I hate to say it might make some people mad, but the one person that said that they can pray and whatever, and then orbs appear and UFOs appear every time. That's like that one person we had on it claimed that his best friend, she could point at the windshield when they're driving and a UFO would appear. Remember that one person we had on with the guy's wife? Could do the same thing. She could go out to the window and point, and the UFO would appear.
Yes, actually, that was there in Nevada. His fiance, I believe, probably married now, but yeah, she had the ability to decloak UFOs at will, which was. And here's the thing: if somebody could do that, it'd be like one of them movies. The military would be at your door recruiting you, whether you want to be recruited or not.
Yeah, they would. They would take you to the lab and dissect you and find out why you had that ability. I watched enough of those sci-fi movies, by the way, creature features. I'll tell you what, you don't want to even tell. If you could actually do anything like that and you had those abilities, you don't want people to know.
No, because you are now going to be property of the military. You are now a weapon or a tool.
Yeah, but what country, too? You never know. You could get.
That's true, too.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, you know what? We're broadcasting live out of New York now.
I know. Very exciting. Boy, listen, there's millions of people in that area to add to the list.
More than 13?
I think there's more than 12.
Yeah. I remember back, after I retired, and Art Bell talked me, to come back into broadcasting. He said, get on the internet. Then, everybody will come, and you don't have to worry about corporate anymore, right? And I remember starting my own show at with his guidance, right? And I called it Motorcycle Talk. And, after a month of doing 2-3 hour shows, right? 5 nights a week, we had 15 listeners. And one of them was my friend Art Bell. And I remember he called it and he said, Gary, have you learned your lesson? What have you been doing for 40 some years? You've been talking about the strange, the paranormal, UFOs, Bigfoot. Why are you talking about motorcycles? I don't know. I like motorcycles.
Yeah, right. It wasn't Bigfoot was seen driving a motorcycle. It was just talking about motorcycles. That was where you went wrong. You didn't add some paranormal cryptids to it.
I know some guys that rode motorcycles that could definitely, it could have been a Bigfoot. I tell you that. They smelt like one anyway.
Sasquatch, yeah.
Yeah, they could have, yeah. So, we got a great show tomorrow. Who's our guest tomorrow?
Tomorrow we have Andrew Bashago coming back on, the time-traveling lawyer who spent, time fighting things on Mars, time traveled.
Yeah, and then Friday, we got Vincent on, don't we?
Vincent Van Dahl, yes, the owner of a haunted mansion and the host of Creature Features.
Oh, yeah. They show movies that are so bad, they're actually good.
Yeah, there's a few on there, but they got some good ones. They got some scary ones, like the old Kolchak ones and that Norliss tapes. That monster in there is scary. It gives me nightmares.
Yeah, but I watched some of them that were so bad. Seriously,
yeah.
I actually had to go to a different movie because I couldn't even 10 minutes into it, and I going, especially the foreign ones that are dubbed,
yeah,
and they're so badly dubbed. Okay.
And that one movie too, where that little African icon's chasing Karen Black around with a little knife.
That was a major. That was a major. On the networks back then.
That was That was a made-for-TV movie by Dan Curtis. It was good. It was just comical how that little thing really got after her.
Well, what can you tell the listeners about our guest tonight, Jason?
Hey, our guest tonight is Dan Willis. Now, he is one of the Disclosure Project's top secret military witnesses that testified at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. in 2001, Gary, and he did this in front of, major mainstream media of the world.
Oh, yeah. Well, Dan, welcome to the show. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Gary. Hi, James. Doing good. I'm going to have a little bit of an echo going on here. I'm not sure why.
Well, that should clear up in a second, hopefully. But anyway, again, what was it like when you went to the first press conference, of disclosure? What was it like?
Oh, you mean May of 2001?
Right.
Well, largest event in the history of the National Press Club, 22 cameras in the back row. Place was packed with reporters. I was one of 21 witnesses. Each one of us gave our testimony and stated afterward we're willing to testify under oath before a congressional hearing. Myself, being an ex-ABC newsman and a chief broadcast engineer for a major station on the West Coast, I could imagine how this could not be a world-changing event. We're revealing bases on the other side of the moon, 57 different species already categorized. We had faster-than-light craft built back in the 1950s. Presidents, CIA directors being denied access. NASA airbrushing the UFOs out. Astronauts sworn to secrecy. What happened in 1969 when they went to the moon. Geez. Just so many explosive testimonies. I couldn't imagine, I didn't even know what Operation Mockingbird was in 2001, Gary. So I began, even though I've been researching ever since 1969, when I received, I had a top secret clearance in naval communications and a ship off the coast of Alaska. The crew witnessed coming off port bow about a 70-foot disc that came out of the ocean and shot straight up into space, going over 7,000 miles per hour. Secret priority level going to Chief of Naval Operations. So I knew the government knew something about this reality, that they're real. And so that put the question in my head, why aren't they revealing this to the public? And so I've researched over the decades. And then in 2001, when it's on CNN, all the different networks, CBS wanted to interview me, and I said, look, I refuse to do the interview unless I can say we have these scientists within these unacknowledged special access programs that can prove, put it on the table, show it working. We have 0-point energy. We don't need nuclear or coal. They promised I could say that. And afterward, the producer says, I never had this happen before. They hire executives, made me cut that part out. And so it made me wonder, well, why would the media, and all doing the same thing in lockstep, what's called a limited hangout, they made it sound like we were 21 witnesses and we were backed by over 500 military intelligence witnesses. Why would they, omit a solution to the world? Why would all the media did in lockstep the same format and said that we wanted to have a congressional hearing based on simply the reality of UFOs, completely omitting all of the explosive information. And, as I researched back, I found out, how that happened, going back into Eisenhower, how he lost control, and how every president, CIA director, heads of intelligence have been denied. And that's what brought about the 500 witnesses that Clinton's CIA director, James Woolsey, tried to look into it. He brought Dr. Stephen Greer into a meeting, and the words out of the director's mouth was, I know the subject's real. I'm just trying to figure out why the hell I can't gain access to it. And so Dr. Greer met with some military advisors, and they advised him to start collecting witnesses. This was 1993. And so from 1993 to the year 2001, he collected over 500 military witnesses. In 1997, he, interestingly, in 1993, I met with Bob Lazar outside of Area 51 with a group of researchers, and no recordings were allowed whatsoever, but I recorded it anyway. And it turns out that the base kind of freaked out about this whole situation that was going on with this meeting, and they put out a NRO security advisory to all base personnel to, avoid contact with these people, or there'll be disciplinary actions and so forth. Anyway, on this document, there was a list of a distribution list that listed unacknowledged special access programs such as Cosmic Ops, Magi Ops, which were like the reverse engineering operations that Bob Lazar was working on.
Now, I got to ask you a question about Bob
Sure.
Lazar. You know, I got to know John Lear pretty good before he passed on. And, you know, he was a good friend of Bob Lazar. And John Lear flatly told me that Bob Lazar never did any back engineering.
That's interesting.
Yeah. And, you know, it goes all the way back. Well, how he met Bob Lazar was years before that. You know, he had a C-41 film processor in his basement, and John Lear had some images of a UFO he wanted to get developed, and that's how they became friends. But he told me, quote unquote, I asked John Lear, I said, John, did Bob Lazar actually back engineer? Now, I was friends with Art Bell, and, you know, Bob Lazar was on Art Bell's show numerous times. And, you know, a lot of times after Art would do his show, he would call me and we would, you know, talk because he couldn't get to sleep after the show. And we would talk. And he also told me that what he checked out about Bob Lazar is that Bob Lazar did nothing more. And that's why you found him in the directory. But he said Bob Lazar only checked people's badges at the compound. So I have you ever heard anything like this? Because if it's true, it makes me wonder how much information could be disinformation that we're getting fed.
Well, you have to question everything. I agree, Gary. His testimony has been 100% consistent over the decades. And it's interesting that, you know, he talked about the element 115, which Lawrence Livermore Laboratories established exactly like he said. It was a stable element afterward. Other things that lend, you know, credibility to what he was saying, and the fact that he's been consistent. If you want to look at it from the other angle, that maybe he was a plant, like a disinformation agent, coming out with this information to basically make it sound like we have not made any progress, which is incorrect because we obtained anti-gravity back in October of 1954. Nazi Germany had acquired anti-gravity, figuring out the torsion physics going all the way back 20 years prior to that, 1934. But where I was leading with that document was that Dr. Greer somehow acquired it and met at the Pentagon with the head of intelligence for the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Vice Admiral Thomas Wilson. He tried to look into it. He was not only denied access, but he was threatened to drop the matter immediately or see an early retirement and lose rank. So he was mad as hell, as you can imagine, and his constitutional authority. So he told Dr. Greer, if you can get your people, and he knew he was collecting witnesses going back to his meeting with Woolsey, if you can get your people willing to testify under oath, you have my permission to go to the mainstream media with us. This group is illegal. So that's essentially what greenlighted the event that I participated in back in 2001. And you know, it's interesting the different narratives that go on. You've got, you know, in the 2021 UFO UAP Senate hearing, you know, the Office of Naval Intelligence, the ones that are supposed to be knowledgeable about this whole subject, right? All of a sudden you have Mr. Gallagher coming up with embarrassing questions like the Maelstrom Air Force Base incident where the nukes being shut down, and you have the Admiral Wilson memo, which is Admiral Wilson being frustrated with the situation. He had a meeting in 2002 with astrophysicist Dr. Eric Davis, who recorded the conversation in the Admiral's limo, and later a transcript got leaked. And after Dr. Edgar Mitchell passed away, it got, you know, online, is well known, and it talked about them working on technology not of this earth. The corporations were, and that they haven't made much progress, which is kind of like a big red flag for me, because my friend Mark McCandish, who is colleague at Norton Air Force Base in 1988, saw the alien reproduction vehicles that were faster than light craft, that he was going to testify at that hearing, but committed suicide before doing so. And just 1 week before his so-called suicide happened, you have Mike Tuber, who was the Air Force intelligence specialist, who 2 years prior revealed that the Tic Tac, that in December 2017, the Nimitz incident, got saturated. Started with New York Times and went across all the media outlets. So everybody, even your grandmother, knows about the Tic Tac. He said it was U.S. technology. He came out and said, I made the whole thing up. There's nothing to it. I just a psychological test. And then 1 week later, Mark commits suicide. What did both of those testimonies reveal?
Was it assistant suicide? That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, both of those testimonies reveal that we have, unlike these Senate hearings claim, we have advanced technologies, anti-gravitic technologies. It's been developed going back to the 1950s. So it makes you question, the different narratives that are out there. One's like the alien threat narrative, which, they had a plan for a false flag alien invasion going way back. If they had the technology to pull it off, that's the last thing they'd want to reveal, is that they have that technology to be able to pull it off.
Dr. Greer, last time he was on the show, and correct me, JC, if I'm wrong, he was mentioning that most of these UFOs or UAPs, whatever you want to call them, are man-made. That was his new feeling. It was not so much from out there. How's your feeling on it?
Well, that's what Ben Rich said too. He said there's ones that we make and the ones that they make. There's probably at least half of them are made Lockheed and so forth. Different corporations. I agree. The thing I don't agree with Dr. Greer is that all the extraterrestrial races are benevolent in the entire galaxy. I don't agree with that. There's many individuals in researching the decades, I've researched, many documents and many witnesses, and also the secret space program witnesses, which I've become friends with a number of them, who have actually encountered some pretty nasty beings out there. Fortunately, from what I understand, the Arlington Institute, run by John Peterson, verified there was 3 independent sources that said our solar system's been cleared out of these regressive extraterrestrials going back to 2021. So we no longer have an extraterrestrial threat, you could say, in our solar system.
I don't know. I don't trust anything I hear. That's the whole problem. And, our tomorrow's guest, Andrew D. Bastero, the attorney, again, has made some real scary claims about these ETs, and that our government, the Air Force, was actually supplying them with human meat.
Well, there's a lot of things that are horrific. At the end of World War II, a whole lot of things happened that a lot of people aren't aware of. They rewrote the history of World War II. They started Operation Mockingbird, paying 400 journalists to create the perception of the public that the CIA was paying. Allen Dulles brought a whole bunch of Nazi spies into the CIA. You've got NASA run by former Nazi SS. You've got all kinds of elements going on that indicate there has been a kind of an infiltration into our country. And that they had a plan before the end of World War II to create they called it Weltanschauungskrieg, in German, it meant worldview warfare, to create this matrix of perception to hide their operations, keeping us believing that we needed rockets to overcome gravity with NASA, while they secretly advanced in their own secret space program and They had operations on the moon, Mars, and so forth.
Well, Dan, think about this. When the Chinese invented the skyrocket, how long ago was that? And we're trying to believe that our technology really hasn't advanced more than the original Chinese skyrocket?
Exactly.
I mean, that don't make sense. When everything, you were an engineer. I've been in broadcasting for many years. I also engineered a couple small stations I was at because I had to, because I'm the one that had the ticket. And, the thing is, the technology has advanced so far from the tubes, which took a big jump from the early 1900s to the 50s, and then late 50s, the transistor, then integrated circuit, and then what they have been able to do. It's astounding in a short period of time how far we advanced. Now, Dan, we need to take about a 3-minute break. We're going to be back with Dan. We're going to talk more about this subject here tonight. And again, tomorrow we're starting to take call-ins. So stay tuned. You're listening to Night Dreams Talk Radio.
I'm losing my mind for the sake of love. I've been trying to reveal it, what I've been so afraid of. Your coldness makes my heart go weak, so numb that I can barely speak. This pain keeps water in the sea. If I weren't so desperate to be free, I'd keep my distance, babe. The more that I know about you, the more that I want you, baby. They say that good love will yield the best from me. I know it to be true. This moment won't last forever. No remedies whatsoever. These feelings we choose to pass on for lesser love. You know it to be true. I'm lost in a manic dream. It weighs on me endlessly. Your tenderness drifts in the wind.
Hey, this is April, the Psychic Housewife of New Jersey. Listen to Night Dreams Talk Radio with Gary Anderson.
Coming to you from the Night Dreams Talk Radio Network newsroom, I'm Guy Ticker with the strange news. Very bizarre and creepy haunted places in Japan. Haunted places seem to exist all over the world, covering a wide range of locales. It seems interesting that so many stories should pervade the world into every corner. These stories seemingly have a universal feature upon the landscape of the weird. One place that has its fair share of spooky haunted places is the nation of Japan. For example, a dream resort by the sea, a stunning seaside paradise on the Japanese island of Okinawa. However, dark days were ahead for this island fantasy, and the resort was doomed to become known as one of the most cursed and haunted places in the island nation. I'm Guy Ticker. The Strange News is brought to you by Night Dreams Talk Radio Network. Do you have a strange story? Contact us at nightdreamstalkradio.com.
I occasionally think how quickly our differences worldwide would vanish if we were facing an alien threat from outside this world. And yet I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Night Dreams brings on the night worldwide. Did you know you can find us on your favorite app? And now you can watch us live on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and give us a thumbs up. And now, here's Gary.
And here I am. I'm just frustrated. You know that, Dan? Is this this last round with the Congress, okay, it's, you had, different people coming on. Actually, the last two times, it's like they give you enough information to hook you into it, but then they also bring people on that if I was in running this panel for Congress, right, I would screen some of the people that would be given testimony, because it seems like they get credible people on there, then they get some strange ones on, which then kind of makes people wonder, like, what is going on here?
It's all about the narrative, Gary, and the narrative that supports the agenda.
Well,
that's what I've discovered.
Well, ever since the crash at Roswell, the cover up, just like any government, you had the Nazis were very good at propaganda, because supposedly the population didn't know about all the Jews and prisoners being executed, gas chambers and all that. They didn't know. They claimed they didn't know. It's just like, here, we're giving nothing but disinformation. And, I want to know. Like I always tell people, do I need to go buy more barbecue sauce if there is ever a invasion of Earth? I can have a massive, here, guys, come on over. I got the barbecue sauce. I mean, I want to know. Again, you get these people who claim, I've interviewed for 50 some years talking about the subjects and all this stuff. You get the people, they're so far advanced, they would never be hostile towards humans. But, we look at our human race, Dan, from the beginning to now. What have we done? We have slaughtered and killed and been in wars constantly, nonstop. So just because the civilization's 10,000 years or 1,000,000 years ahead of us, they could still have that trait.
There's always the dark elements on the planet that want to reduce the population, have a slave force, and have all the advanced technology for themselves, and just have a bunch of servants. That seems to be kind of the Nazi mindset, you could say. In researching, in trying to find answers myself, I've researched a lot. I've gone through so much material, gone through so many documents, so many witness testimonies, and after a while, what happened was, after I went to Washington to testify, a media company out of Hollywood wanted me to write an article on the control of media, being an ex-ABC newsman and a witness, and I gladly accepted, because I was trying to figure out what the hell happened back then. How did we have like 500 witnesses and place packed with reporters, and the Bush administration denied the congressional hearing, of course. It inspired a hacker in the UK to reveal the U.S. Navy's Solar Warden and secret space program, which they wanted to put away for 70 years in prison for that.
Yeah, they still do.
Yeah, Gary McKinnon.
Yeah.
So, in looking through what different people are coming out with, there's this French lady that have a ongoing good relationship with, that was abducted when she was 9 years old by the gray aliens, and she was rescued by the Galactic Federation of Worlds, and they had to repurpose the implant that the Greys put in there to be able to be a communication device. And I've been in communication with a being on Mars since April of last year. We've got about 132 pages of question and answer. In the 1980s, I worked with IBM's head scientist, Dr. Marcel Vogel, with crystal technology. And so he's been sharing advanced crystal technology that they use on their planet Era. So, in researching back through her, I was trying to find things that, I always try to find corroboration with things. And there's things that she revealed that there's just no way you would know unless you had direct knowledge. Like, she was communicating to Thorhan, her contact. I was on Mars doing terraforming operations, and a huge earthquake, he said, just happened They were doing terraforming operations on the Ares Prime base. And she immediately emailed Dr. Sala to tell him about it. And then the next day or so, you have NASA reporting the largest quake ever reported in our solar system on Mars. Stuff you just can't make up. And then she said there was 3 planets on Proxima Centauri. She wrote a book of 110 different extraterrestrial species. She's a very good artist. Looked at the Galactic Federation database, detailed what they look like, what planets. And exactly like she said, 2 years later, NASA discovers there's 3 planets on Proxima Centauri. And then Thorhan reveals, everybody's going to be talking about Neptune in the next week or so. Watch the news. Sure enough, all of a sudden, Neptune starts heating up. There's these arcs that are in our solar system that when they activate, they start to heat up. And so, just 3 things. I've detailed about 20 different corroborations that. And so, I know there's a lot of disinformation agents out there to muddy the waters so people don't know what to believe. And I can, if you don't research and if you don't have a lot of data to pull from, it's very easy to be confused about what's real and what's not.
You're so right on that. And, in the news last week, they're talking about, and it was, it's funny, it was all day on the news, CNN, right down to everything. And then they're like, it just dropped off like it never happened. But they said they found a base on Mars, an ET base.
Oh, yeah. It was a Professor Shed. He was head of the Israeli space program. He was talking about the Galactic Federation. They're waiting. We're not quite ready yet to be exposed, so, he came out, and somebody with, high credibility like himself, and he talked about the base on Mars that they had. I know a number of the people that have been in the secret space program and, been in those operations and rescue operations. So, just to share with the listeners, my article, which got longer and longer and longer about, I called it, Who Controls the Agreed Upon Reality Through the Mainstream Media and Why They Fear Disclosing the Truth About the Extraterrestrial Reality at thewebmatrix.net. It's just my, what I found is I had to do a chronology starting from the beginning of the 20th century, year 1900 to present day, and I started plugging in all these different witness testimonies, all these different documents, and after a while, it starts to reveal a pattern. You can't say you ever have the whole thing figured out, right? But you start to show an indication of a probability of what's been hidden for decades from the people of this planet. Myself, I volunteered after after the scientists were denied a congressional hearing, I volunteered, and for 10 years, I flew around the planet meeting with scientists and inventors, vetting these, so-called over-unity type inventions. And, it just one nightmare after another. Ever since the Invention Secrecy Act 1951, there's like over 6,000 inventions have been suppressed by national security orders. So
how many of those people invented it all of a sudden mysteriously died?
Well, I know a few of them.
Yeah, that's scary too.
Yeah, and they have the technology to do that. Most of them received, like the one scientist friend, he invented this device based on Tesla's information, about 300 watts out of a little small thing. It's very affordable. He had 68,000 of them made in Japan. His cars were blown up. He was thrown in prison, received the national security order. He can't release it, so they had to shut down the whole operation. Since that time, he's come up with other inventions he hasn't revealed yet, but, it won't get out there. I've given up on any further effort until the deep state can be collapsed. Thank God for that day, huh?
Yeah. Well, what did you think about this last run around with the Congress?
With the UFO UAP thing?
Yeah. What was your feeling on that?
Well, it's the people they put in place, the naval intelligence guys and whatever that lead the whole thing. They only support a narrative, and the narrative isn't based on the full reality that's been hidden. And there's much evidence to show that we do have anti-gravity craft. We've had it developed for a long time, and it's been kept secret for some time. My belief is that the Space Force was created in order to. We already have a Space Force. What happened was, in the 30s, the reptilians gave the Nazi SS advanced technology, which created a situation of an imbalance where they were able to defeat Admiral Byrd in Operation High Jump, fly over the Capitol building in 1952, and intimidate the Eisenhower-Truman administration. And so what happened was the Galactic Federation, they have a prime directive. It sounds like Star Trek, but there's actually a prime directive where they're not supposed to interfere with lesser evolving races. But this gave them the green light in order to come in and work secretly with the U.S. Navy, which launched the U.S. Solar Warden program back in the 1980s. And so we've got, these huge kilometers-long craft out there that Gary McKinn discovered in the computers that have been operational. So we have the technology, but it hasn't been revealed to the people of our planet.
Yeah. Again, how would you, after being lied to for so long, would you trust a government that has deceived the population for all these years, and all of a sudden to come out and say, "Oh, we have all this technology," and we've been, we just thought for the interest of humanity, we didn't want to divulge it. How are they going to ever come clean?
Well, as long as we have an infiltrated, corrupt government, like we have an infiltrated, corrupt media, like the CIA since 1983 consolidated down to 6 corporations that control mostly everything everybody sees and hears, so they can centrally control the narrative that is actually against the American people and the people of the world. So long as they can do that, any kind of disclosure, they will try to take it and spin it and work it toward their narrative in their benefit. And the alien threat narrative, could be, I'm speculating, right? Could be that this could be a way to usher in, let's say they had aliens from space coming in, and then they have you were mentioning earlier about, down in Peru, about, and that it's interesting you mentioned about the chips being fine, because they have what's called programmed life forms. Like anybody in their right mind would look at this and it looks like an extraterrestrial, but they would use that to say, "Oh God, we're being attacked. Evil aliens are here. We need to," like you played the clip with Ronald Reagan, "we need to gather together and fight this alien foe coming, to our planet." And this would reel in the New World Order, one world order type of plan. So it could fit that agenda.
Oh, how about FEMA? They have all these camps yet, that they still are staffing. Just think about that. If they did something like that, all of a sudden anybody that becomes a security risk could get locked up. Oh,
when you look into it goes into the whole dark area of all of that going back. What was 1982? George H.W. Bush signed in on the Agenda, 2-1. And, they plan to reduce the population considerably and have their one world order. It's been in the works for a long time. I think we're heading that way. Look at this digital currency. Next thing is going to be implanting chips into people. You have AI and, intelligence that's gone crazy. If you're in a lot of countries, they can sit there, you're walking down the street, before you walk 30 feet, they know who you are. Well, I feel optimistic about the future. In January this year, Commander Thor Henneredian, part of the Galactic Federation of Worlds, gave a disclosure plan to General Van Herk, who is commander of North Air Command. We have like a Earth Alliance that has advanced technology for their space program, and they've been working with the Galactic Federation of Worlds. The Galactic Federation of Worlds, they can't come in and save us. That goes against the we basically have to take responsibility for cleaning up our own house, so to speak. Because it's, just like a kid, burns his finger on the fire. You got to learn for yourself. You can't have somebody else mothering you all the time.
Okay, so if we end up in World War III and some nukes go, they're not going to stop it, are they?
I don't think. It's my belief that I don't think that they will allow a nuclear exchange, but it looks like we're heading in that direction rapidly. The way things are moving, especially with I hear some stuff in the North Sea of another potential false flag. I had to go in combat action in the rivers of Vietnam because of the Gulf of Tonkin situation, and a whole lot of guys had to go in because of speaking of false flags, Werner von Braun revealed the pre-planned false flags going into the future, and we disclosed that there was going to be a terrorist event next in May of 2001. Everybody knows what happened in September, with the final card was going to be the hoaxed alien event, attack. They had it were. Going back to 1967, a report from Iron Mountain was talking about contriving a threat from outer space. So they've had this plan for a long time.
Yeah, well, hopefully we're not at that stage, because what would be a perfect, and this is only me, but what's going on with wars right now and how it's escalating, it might be a perfect time in the near future to create a false flag.
Oh yeah, they need a huge distraction right now, don't they? Something of a huge scale would seem like it would fit the bill right now. But my understanding is that the dark elements on this planet, they had relationships with these gray and reptilian beings that have been removed from our solar system, so that basically their high command has been decapitated, and so they're basically on their own. And so it's just basically up to the people of our planet to, come into awareness. Thank God, shows like yours getting out there to help awaken people. Do your own research. Don't trust anybody. As you dig into all this, you'll find the truth is stranger than any science fiction movie you've ever read.
Oh, back now, JC, when was that about 2 years ago when we were talking about this type of subject, and then the helicopter came over to my studio?
Actually, that was about 3 years ago, and you got that email that said, "Just so you know," 4 words.
Yeah, and I couldn't understand why a helicopter was like hovering over. And we're talking a military, because I've been on a lot of military helicopters, and the whole thing was rattling. And then the next morning I was leaving my compound, and my neighbor said, "Hey, look, you had a military helicopter for about 3-4 minutes. It's hovering right over your roof." And then like JC mentioned, right after the show, I got this nice email. Basically, did I learn my lesson? Then we got hacked. Do you remember how many times they took down everything from all the apps and everything? They just totally wiped us out.
Oh yes, that went on for about a week, 10 days, and it was sporadically. But yeah, it was very frustrating. So yeah, it definitely got somebody's attention.
Yeah, that's what scares me. That, Dan.
What were you disclosing, Gary?
We're talking attention. The same thing we're talking about right now.
Watch out for the helicopters.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I haven't heard one since, but I tell you, that scared me. But it didn't stop me from talking about it because I think, we need to know what's going on. I feel like,
That's right.
we're being lied to, manipulated. And like I go from the last two times as Congress being televised. They purposely brought people on to make it look bad for the cost. We're trying to disclose that these things go. Then they bring on these people. Well, I can pray. And then, orbs or UFOs appear. I mean, I just that kind of like it damages what they're trying to do. And then
the average person just listening to that just kind of discounts it in their mind. They could be talking about the flat earth or something and equating it with it, through association of the discrediting type of individuals that they bring in. It kind of trashes the whole thing in people's minds. So it doesn't gather the attention, and that works for the agenda.
And then, too, not the last one, but the one before that, when they would bring in different officials from the CIA all the way down, right? And then they would say, well, Roswell never happened. We have no proof that there's been any, wreckage, retrieval, no nothing. And they contradicted everything that, it's crazy. It's just crazy about what they do. And all these people, I'll be honest with you, I've been doing this so long, and I know a lot of people out there, and they would call me up and say, oh, major disclosure is going to happen. And I sat there and said, no, it's not. No, it's not. Maybe if you're writing a book, it is to make money.
Not so long as they control the media.
That's the whole problem. They do control it.
Yeah, that's what I found. And, how they're able to do it, Gary, is through generational indoctrination. Because, when you and I were kids, I don't know your age group, but
I'm going on 72. I'm old.
I used to watch Walter Cronkite with my father, and my father had no reason to question the media. What we were seeing on television, he would trustworthy individuals. And then as you grow up in adulthood, you just naturally assume and trust that the media, and look at all the different sources of media, they're all saying the same thing. It must be true. And then you think, oh, well, and then there's journalists that, if something wasn't right, they would speak up, but no, they get fired. So many people in our population can't wrap their mind around the idea that our media, and they don't understand the history of how our media became infiltrated and how it's centrally controlled today toward an agenda that is against the people and is to engineer our perceptions and engineer our consent toward their agenda. And it's just too much of a mind stretch, and they label anybody who talks about that, like you and I, as being conspiracy theorists. So,
or worse, they can actually say, "Well, that person has mental problems." I mean, that's how it is. They try to discredit you
every way they can, because they don't want that, because then they lose their base. And just imagine if let's say we had 90% of the population caught on to the game of what's been going on, what's been perpetrated on our people. There's more of us than there is of them. And I think that would terrify them.
I think it would be a civil war if people really knew what was going on and how they've been manipulated and lied to for the years.
Well, what they have to do is psychologically pit us against each other. They pit us against, our sexual orientation, our race, our religion, our political views, any way they can drive a wedge in between people through the media, and they cherry pick information to do exactly that. And so long as we're fighting amongst ourselves against each other, we don't see kind of the proverbial man behind the curtain that's manipulating the perceptions, that's causing the conflict, that is keeping the attention off of the real problem, which is the infiltration of our information systems.
And you're so right. Now, our time is up, and it went by so fast, Dan. Do you have any books, website, anything you want to share?
I make zero money at this. And
I'm pretty close to it.
My website is thewebmatrix.net. And it's just my notes. This is share. It's not a professional site, but it's got references to everything, and use it for your research. But don't question everything, and after a while you'll come to the same conclusion that I did, as one oh my God after another, that a lot of this is true.
I really think, again, technology is so far advanced than what we're let on to even comprehend. But anyway, Dan, the weekend is coming up. I want you to have a great one, and maybe we can get you on and we can finish this conversation.
Oh, so much more to say, Gary. I really, really enjoyed it. And James, thanks for bringing me on. And we look forward to doing it again sometime.
Okay, my friend, you have a great one. And thank you so much.
Okay,
bye-bye. You take care. Well, JC, why don't you tell listeners again a little bit about our guest for tomorrow?
Well, our guest tomorrow is Andrew Bishago, and he is known as a time travel lawyer. Now, he's done a lot of things with Pegasus Project, which was what was behind his time travel project, which he started when he was a young man, which his father was into also. So he's going to talk about some of the missions he was on Mars. And
isn't it going to be where these ETs were, not very happy with humans?
Yes, some of the humanoid ETs and some of the creature-like ETs and just different ones, and he'll describe them and how he had to survive and how a couple of the astronauts didn't survive.
And also in the news, did you read about robots? They come out with artificial skin made with fungus.
Oh, I didn't hear that. I do know they had some at one of the football games the other night.
Yeah, I mean, technology, and again, what we see in a robot, they're far more advanced. But, there was a major company that actually got a whole bunch of these robots. They fired a lot of the people that worked in the warehouse, and the people are working with the robots because they can do what a human can't do. In other words, they can work without a lunch break.
Right. How ironic. These people will create these robots that will be taking their jobs, and then one day the robot's going to say, you know what, these humans are obsolete. Why are they here? Why do we need them?
And don't forget Friday, Creature Features host is on our show. So you might want to go onto YouTube and, and watch some of the great movies they show. I mean, some of them are, I'll be honest with you, worse than B movies. But, you might get a little hang of what they do. They've been around. Creature Features has been around since the 60s. And Vincent is the current host for the show. And coming out of California, out of his haunted mansion. And we're going to be talking about all that here on Friday. We're going to open up the last 15 minutes, a call line. You can call our New York number. You might want to jot this down. Why don't you give it to the listeners?
Our new New York call-in number is 716-405-0253. And matter of fact, we're going to be taking call-ins tomorrow. So if you got any questions for the time-traveling lawyer, what time will we be taking those call-ins?
Last 15 minutes of the show.
All right.
Okay. Well, since, a show is being broadcast out of New York, I need to get out there and get my tap shoes on and do some tapping down Broadway.
Yeah. Well, you're like off Broadway, aren't you?
I'm way off Broadway. I'm way off, period.
I'm
just off.
That's part of the recovery, right?
Yep. Well, till tomorrow, everybody have a good one. Make sure you give us a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do. Rory, you have a good one. Kim, have a good one. Barb, have a good one. And there's some other people out there, too, that I might have missed. Did you notice anybody I missed here?
Yeah, Tom is out there. Tom. And also Ron J's out there. and Mr. Connor.
Yeah. Well, all you guys out there, have a great one. We will catch you on the other side, if there is such a thing. We'll catch you tomorrow.